Hello, Mansi.
Hi Poonam, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well as well, thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you for taking time to talk to us.
No, for sure. I've been looking forward to this, so hoping for having a good conversation here.
Yeah, me too. So, Mansi, before we start our interview, let me just introduce you to our viewers.
Okay.
Mansi, a Delhi IIT graduate, had worked with MER on her essays on her application for 5 schools, and she was admitted into all 5 of them: Wharton, Kellogg, Harvard, Stanford, and INSEAD.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Harvard, her dream school. Last year, Mansi had, in her first interview, she had shared her application experience, her career objectives, why MBA, preference for MBS, and much more. Mansi has very kindly agreed to give us another interview to share her amazing Harvard, first year Harvard experiences with us.
Yes.
So, for those who have not seen her first interview, we'll first ask her about her background, GMAT prep, application prep, before we move on to her first year experiences at Harvard.
Okay.
So, Mansi, could you please tell something about your background, where you are from, and
For sure, Poonam. As you said, I graduated from IIT Delhi in 2012, and thereafter I worked with a company called Schlumberger. It's an oil and gas service provider. With Schlumberger, I started working in India, and then I worked in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Indonesia. Um, and after Schlumberger, I also worked for an Indian oil and gas company called Kane India, wherein I kind of moved from more of an operations technical role into a business planning and a strategy kind of role. And that kind of intrigued me to further think about my career. And that's when I decided to do an MBA. And I started preparing for GMAT and thinking of applying to business schools out there. And that's when I got admitted in HPS, and here I am.
great. Looking back, you scored a stellar 770 GMAT score. Can you share with our viewers your GMAT planning and preparation?
Sure, Poonam. I think this question has been asked to me by a lot of GMAT applicants and people who want to score a good score. It's a very genuine question because your entire application starts with this preparation and the score. The best advice and the most repetitive advice that you can get is start early so that you have as much time as you can in terms of not just GMAT preparation but also like in just in case you want to give it again and improve your score. So to start with, definitely start early and have a lot of time in your plate. And secondly, make a good planning, make a good identify what you want to work on, identify whether it's quant, whether it's verbal, whether it's both, and how do you want to work on that to improve step by step to the score that you want to. Having a proper planning in a timely manner, having a deadline where you give a GMAT, all this kind of helps in putting the preparation together and whatever you're trying to do to take you to the target score that you want to. Uh, so yes, I mean, a couple of resources that I took were the eGMAT online course, and I think all the official GMAT resources in terms of the official guide. I also took a verbal help, I think, of it's parallel to the official guide. And also some online tests, which were in package 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. I think the three packages kind of that. So the official resources, and I think eGMAT is just enough to kind of like prepare for the entire GMAT time.
Great. Mansi, last year we had discussed in detail about your application experience. Can you briefly tell our viewers about your application prep? For those who have not seen that interview.
For sure. I think I gave my GMAT around June end. So that I could start in round one. I was sure that in about a couple of months, I couldn't apply to all the schools that I wanted to, which were majorly Harvard, Wharton, INSEAD, Kellogg, and Stanford for that matter. So I thought of breaking that list up into two categories, and I think Poonam really helped me in that in terms of focusing Harvard in the later round when I was more prepared, more practiced, both in terms of preparing my application as well as my interviews. So I gave Wharton and Kellogg in round one, and Harvard, Stanford, NCR in round two. NCR was somewhere between round round two of the US schools, so that helped as well, to kind of like, distributing in the timeline. And again, I think starting early is a very key thing. I kind of lost the month of July in just trying to figure out what to do, how to do, which consultant to work with. I would suggest to fasten up that process and start up early as much as you can. And the first schools takes up a lot of time, just in terms of like introspection, how to figure out the story behind your application, how to connect the dots, and basically just how to realize what you want to do further, and just framing that everything into an application form. So be prepared that the first application takes a long time. It's just not that it's the first application, it's just about, you need time to figure out yourself. So just be prepared for that, and just have a strategy of how you want to cater to each application. Some applications are long. NCR was like, as you remember, Poonam, it was like immensely long. Wharton Kellogg, on the other hand, was shorter. So that's why that helped as well. Preparing for two schools, which are not that too long in the first round, made it easy. And by the time we came into Harvard, we both were pretty confident on my application. And we knew, how we wanted to like frame it and put it out there. And at the same time, just be confident with yourself, with your application. Don't get lost in what the schools want. Just be yourself. Just know what you want with your application.
Right. That's true. So we'll tell the viewers to see your first interview to get to know about your application experience in detail.
Yeah, I think that was a very detailed video.
So it's a great concern for a lot of people how to fund your MBA. So do you have any advice for the applicants?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very genuine concern, and it's one of the questions that is being asked to me time and time again, and people kind of hesitate to ask that question too. But feel free to ask your seniors or your peers who are in that school to kind of guide you to go through the financial aid process. Many schools in the US have a good program of financial aid, in which they help students to go through their tuition fees. Harvard and Stanford have a very great program. I'm sure Wharton does that too. So be aware of all those financial aid programs before you apply to them, because sometimes you have to incorporate an extra essay or something in your application that kind of ties it to the financial aid. Harvard does not have that kind of a thing. It's just a means-based financial aid program, which is really helpful again. But most of the schools have something or the other kind of a program which helps people to give you a better financial position after MBA. So make sure that you're aware of that before applying to the school. Secondly, also search for many other financial aid, scholarships and stuff like that just around you. Search online, search the kind of organizations that you have worked with in the past, or in India or abroad, or the kind of organization that you want to be associated with. And thirdly, loans, definitely it helps. I am funding my MBA part with financial aid, my own savings, and part loan. This is a mix that I've seen very common around, but you can definitely have your own, mixture to that. You can opt to just taking up a loan rather than putting in your own savings. That is a very, common choice too. So just be aware that there are options, and if you ask people, they're ready to help you in that.
That's a very valuable advice, Mansi. All right, let's move on to our main topic of discussion, main subject of discussion, your first year at Harvard.
Right.
I remember it was your dream school from the beginning. You were accepted into 5 schools, and without a second thought, you went for Harvard. That's where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your favorite thing about Harvard so far?
I think the favorite thing about Harvard so far is, I think, the community. And when I say the word community, I'm just not like just saying it randomly. I really mean it. And it starts from professors, colleagues, alumni, everyone who is a Harvard community. Mm-hmm. And when I say so, it's because most of the learning experience happens through this community. As I was telling you earlier, that the best learnings that I've had so far is with the conversations that I have with my people around me. My section mates, my friends, and everyone. And it's not like you genuinely want to learn something from them. It's just that being with them, listening to their perspective, even if that differs from your own, it's just a very good learning and eye opener thing that you can do at Harvard, or in to some extent in many other schools as well, for that matter. The case study method comes into this part as well, because the professor facilitates this and the case discussions happens between your colleagues, and that is such a nice environment in terms of like being safe and being politically correct, that you can, you don't have to worry about all those kind of things, and you really get into the discussion of a case and you talk about everything before and after that, and you genuinely have a lot of learnings from that kind of discussions with your peers, and an environment that you can completely trust on.
And you're not scared of expressing your opinion, even though it's different from others.
Right. You kind of, it takes time, but you kind of start trusting your colleagues and your peers in some time. And you definitely have the advantage that you are in HBS and you have the reach to all those kind of like cases and knowledge that you otherwise didn't have earlier.
Wonderful. So can you please share your best experiences in and outside of class that have shaped your career, enhanced your learning, your best experiences?
I think my best experiences, I'll start with outside class because that is something I enjoy. I think traveling around with friends or peers is something that I've really enjoyed, and it's like a different kind of traveling. I've traveled a lot in India and around as well, but traveling around here, you start seeing things from a different lens. For example, we did this global course in Argentina a couple of months earlier. And then the idea was to like visit a country and try to study the economy and learn more out of being in a place, and rather than just learning it out from a case. But it's just more, when you travel with your friends, when you travel with your professors, it's a kind of environment that you definitely learn. At the same time you enjoy. You start looking at things differently. You have certain specific background of that country or that place. At the same time you have a perspective of your own, and you want to like see how can we improve certain situations. So I think that is the kind of difference schools like Harvard can make in your personality, that whenever you start traveling or just like interacting with other people, you have a different lens to it now. You see it in a more intellectual, at the same time more experiential manner. So that's one thing I liked outside the class. Inside the class, I think, so as you know that with all the cases, sometimes we get to meet the protagonist as well. And that has been one of the best experiences so far, that you meet so many different protagonists that you have looked up to all your life till now. And you get to meet to them, you listen from them face to face. That has been really, really grateful. I clearly remember this one instance when Indra Nooyi came to our class. And I've seen so many videos of her, and I kind of idolized her during my MBA application process as well. But just meeting her and getting the same learnings more or less, but just being face to face with her was just a surreal experience. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you repeat the name of the person?
Indra Nooyi.
Okay.
Indra Nooyi, CEO, ex-CEO, chairman of PepsiCo.
Yeah. And anyone else you heard?
Yeah, we had a lot of CEOs. Larry Culp came in once, who is the current CEO of GE and past CEO of Danaher. And there are many more. I mean, like with all cases, the protagonists try to come to the classes, and we get that fortunate chance of meeting them as well.
Very good. I was wondering if there is anything you would like to change about Harvard. I shouldn't be asking, but still, is there anything that you would like to change about the school?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think sometimes I feel that the class size is really big, and had it been a bit smaller, it could have been more helpful to kind of like have to know more people, but closer. You understand? So I think that is one thing I could have wished for Harvard, but at the same time, it comes with another advantage of it, that the large class size will give you a large network in terms of alumni database. I know I reached out to so many different people whether it was organizing a conference or looking for an internship, or just like connecting with people to know about their experiences. It just helps because it's a large network. But at the same time, the advantage of a small class size is that you tend to know people much more closely.
That's true. So what do you think your classmates were surprised to know about you?
Okay. That's an interesting question. I think everyone comes up with a very nice, a very interesting aspect of their life, whether it's professional or personal. In my case, I think they were really amazed to hear about my oil and gas stories. And surprisingly, we had a lot of oil and gas cases as well, where I was called upon like multiple times. So that, and then I used to like tell them about my experiences on oil rigs, working in conditions that they've never even heard of. And those kind of experiences, those kind of like, story sharing was something that they were really surprised by. They couldn't imagine that a world like that existed, firstly, and secondly, that I could be a part of that world as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised to know about all the challenges you had faced.
Yeah, that was an interesting time.
That was really amazing, impressive. So, Mansi, have you been involved in any clubs on the campus? Of course, you have been involved. Which clubs you have been involved with, and which clubs you like the most?
Yes, I think I've been actively involved in two clubs. First one is the Energy Club. Being from oil and gas, it just made sense to be in that club. And the second is South Asian Business Association, which is more like a business club of the Indian community. I think my association with that club is more closer to me. I've just enjoyed being in that club more. Um, Not just because it's like, India associated, but also because it's like, it organizes such fun functions, trips, within the community. And that kind of community kind of like over time, builds a strong support system around you. So yeah, I've enjoyed my time with both these clubs.
Great. Are you able to pursue your passion of dancing in this club? Or?
Yes. In fact, South Asian Business Association, they organized an Ekta, which is like a cultural show from the Indian community, Indian and South Asian community. And we did a Bhangra performance, surprisingly, which was very enjoyable. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I wanted to know in detail about the Global Immersion Program.
Okay.
You participated and you had briefly talked about it in answering to the other
Yes.
questions. Can you tell us something about it in detail?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best things that these days business schools are doing, and not just HBS, a lot of different business schools are doing that. A part of their course is to take a group of students in a different environment, in a different country, in a different cultural context, and make them work on a business case so that they get to enhance their global intelligence in terms of solving a problem outside their comfort zone, outside their home country. I went to Argentina and I really enjoyed the experience. We worked on a fun, interesting case in a food industry. Something I could never imagine doing otherwise, working in a food industry in Argentina, not so much. So that was really good. And as I told you, as a run up to the global immersion, you have these prior classes wherein they teach you about the economy, the history, the politics of a country, which is very important when you're trying to solve a business case or in general a particular case in a particular country. And that kind of like opened my perspective about travel. At the same time, looking at countries from a different lens, that it's important to know about their history, economics, political scenario before jumping out to the conclusions of, okay, this is what a country should do, this is what a business should do. That kind of thinking development is something that I learned from this particular course, which is really helpful and hopefully will be really rewarding in future as well.
Yeah, wonderful. So tell us something about the recruitment. What does recruitment look like at HBS?
Sure. Recruitment, the entire recruiting process is a very structured process in HBS, and I'm sure in other schools as well. And we have this CPD department, which is more like a career and professional development center. And they have career coaches, and they have this portal, which is really amazing in terms of helping us with all the timelines and giving us the support that we kind of reach out for. Um, the recruiting starts the first 2 months. There's nothing happening on campus, which I think is a really good thing, because you're just in a different place, a different environment in a different country, and jumping into recruiting doesn't make sense, at least not to me. So that helped, that a couple of months we don't talk about recruiting as much. And then companies start coming onto campus. You have these career sessions that you start knowing about the different options that you have, trying to find out what you really want. Um, and even in that, HBS helps a lot. I remember they organized a couple of programs in which they kind of like, just helped us introspect that what we really wanted in life and in which path we wanted to go to. And after these, another month or so about this, recruiting preparation, I think January, the next semester, in between the first and the second semester, January, the formal recruiting process starts happening for internships, wherein you start applying for companies. Companies already come on campus and you apply on the portal and you kind of get shortlisted, and then you have face-to-face interviews in January. And from there on, the process takes the companies, and it's between the companies and the students, and then you can take it forward that ways.
Okay. Do you have any advice for the incoming students about recruitment?
Yeah, I think my advice would be just to be open, to not have a. I know that everyone writes that you want to be, XYZ in the short term and, ABC in the long term. Just have an open mind when you come here, and it's a great place to learn from everyone around you, be it your peers, be it your career coaches, be it your professors. Even they come from a very professional background, and they have contacts and they have features that you can't even imagine about. So just have an open mind about what you want to do, and just be open. Summer is a time that you can experiment something with your life which you can otherwise not. So just be open about it.
Wonderful. So Mansi, is there anything I haven't asked and you would like to say?
I think you've covered most part of it. I would just like to I'm like, this is the time when a lot of people have started reaching me out in terms of how to apply to business schools, which business schools to apply and stuff like that. GMAT preparation advice. I would just say that, just firstly, before jumping into the process, just try to know yourself, and just try to figure out what you want from, not lifelong term, but at least life in the next few years, and how you want it to be. So just take a step back and figure out stuff before you start jumping into the process. And even in MBA, it's very easy to get dragged along into everything that's happening around. For me, it really helped. I still try to find it difficult to sometimes, because it's not easy, and you try to get carried away with the everyday things. But just taking a step back again, and figuring out, is this really want to do something? Prioritizing makes a lot of effect even after MBA. Definitely before MBA, but after MBA, you just need it. So you need to know that these are the things I definitely need to do, and probably these are the things I can say no to. So you start learning to say no to different things. So that is one thing I think could be a good advice.
Yeah, it's setting your priorities. The very, very valuable advice for the incoming students and for the applicants both. So is there anything, Mansi, you wish you had known about Harvard before you started your journey at Harvard?
Is this something that I know about?
You had known
earlier. I think the fact that these schools, and HBS in particular, they have immense amount of resources, academic support, career support, alumni support, all these different channels, health support, both in terms of like physical, mental health support. They have immense amount of resources, and even by now, I'm sure that I have not tapped into, let's say, even 20% of those resources. And I just wish that I knew that earlier, so that I'm kind of more prepared and just more aware about those resources. And I think it's more about, the global schools. These kind of have a lot of resources that you can make use of. Just be aware of it, and even if you don't use it, just be aware at the back of your mind that these are the resources that I can reach out to just in case I need those. And if you want, you can do as much as you want with these resources.
Wonderful. That's a very useful advice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mansi, thank you for sharing your application experience and your first year experiences at Harvard. I'm
Sure,
sure
Poonam.
valuable advice will be a helpful resource for the applicants as well as for the incoming students. I wish you good luck with your second year at
Take care.
HBS and continued success in your future career. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope so too. I hope these students make use of it. Um, yes, and it's been wonderful talking to you as well. I think we talked after almost a long time after my first interview, so it's
After
really good catching up with you too.
it was really a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.